What is up, wrestling fans? I'm Tony Mango, and I'm welcoming you, of course, to the latest Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. Double or Nothing just ended. I'm here to talk about it, give you my thoughts, give you my breakdown, tell you what happened, tell you who won, tell you who lost, tell you everything that I'm going to tell you, and I want you to tell me what you got to say as well, so drop your comments below. I see Marquise is in the chat. What's up, Marquise? Anybody else who might be joining in later on or listening to this afterward? By all means, tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and everything else like that. Let's just get into this, because it is 12:45 in the morning, and you know me, I'm a night owl. I'm somebody who tends to go to sleep I'll be like, oh, look at that, it's 6 in the morning. I guess I should probably try to sleep at this point, kind of deal. So normally, to me, in 12:45 a.m., it's nothing. But after watching 5.5 hours or more of this pay-per-view, I'm feeling the same kind of low energy that I was feeling the last couple times that this happened, where it's fucking exhausting to watch some of these events. And despite the fact that there are some good things in here, I ultimately would feel like I wish this would have been 2.5 hours less overall. And I probably would have been a little bit better. And as Rob had said earlier, he's like, you're going to be so cranky on this podcast. I'm going to be a little bit cranky. I'll perfectly be honest. I'm leaving this feeling better after the last 3 matches than I was earlier, because earlier in the night I was just like, I really wish I was just watching Stranger Things right now instead of this pay-per-view. But it's a shame that that's the case, because I was really looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be a great event, and there are some good things in here, but there are some things that happen on this card that it was a slog to get through. As Michael Patrick in the chat says, this was a long show. It felt like it, too. That was the thing. So I'm flying solo in this edition. Callum, I don't know if he fell asleep or what's going on. I don't blame him for being over in the UK if that was the case. Rob's, of course, doing media coverage right now, so if he gets a chance later on, he might stop in and say hello or something. It is in one of those kind of scenarios where... oh, you know what? Actually, Callum might be able to join. Let me see if that's the case. I didn't... I'm trying to bring him in on here. You're going to potentially hear the little Skype noise. There he is. There's Callum. I didn't think that Callum was going to be joining us. Hey, what's up, Callum?
Yeah, I'm good.
I thought you might have fallen asleep or something, because I didn't hear from you earlier.
I mean, you could have asked.
I did. In chat said, how are you digging on the show so far?
Yeah, like 3 hours ago.
Yeah,
I was watching the show. I didn't have Facebook up or anything.
Well,
I don't really spend a lot of time on there. I don't have Facebook notifications on my phone or anything like that.
Oh, so, you don't? Oh, okay. No. Well, you didn't miss anything. It's just me saying this felt really long, and I wish that they would have cut some of the matches to make room for some of the other things, because I'm feeling better about it after the last 3 segments, but earlier in the night, was really feeling it. How were you feeling? Were you enjoying this more than I was? Were you down on some things, good on some things?
Oh, absolutely. I enjoyed the vast majority of the show, but I'm definitely in the same boat, saying that, yeah, they probably could have cut out 3 matches and made it a bit more condensed. But honestly, like, some of the actual matches which were added to the show, which I felt were superfluous, were actually better than some of the matches that had been booked leading into the show.
There are a lot of matches on this card that I think in a bubble I might have enjoyed better if it wouldn't have been following some of the other things. Like the placement of the matches got to me a little bit, and even just rearranging something like, I mean, we'll talk one by one about this, but even moving around like the women's title match, the women's world title match, I should say, because there was 2 of them. I think even that coming earlier in the night, I would have enjoyed the match better. And some other matches kind of fit in a similar position where I'm like, you take the same thing, you hack it up a little bit, and I think it flows better, even if some of the matches I still feel like I probably wouldn't be the biggest fan of. But again, like everybody in the chat, chat it up, tell us what you think. We're going to start off with the buy-in, which was the Hookhausen match. Hookhausen beats Tony Nese and Smart Mark Sterling, which it was the way that I kind of expected it to be a little bit. It's not really for me, but hopefully other people enjoyed it. How'd you feel about it, Callum?
Yeah, it's fine. It's kind of hard to remember because it was so long ago that happened. But yeah, it was as you'd expect, just some comedy stuff with Sterling and Danhausen. Hook gets in, cleans house, takes out Sterling. Danhausen gets the pin at the end. Yeah, it's pretty much by the numbers.
I was a little bit disappointed that there wasn't a little bit more silly stuff, to be honest, even though it's not working for me, the Danhausen gimmick. Because I was like, well, if you're going to go for it, at least go for it more. And I kind of felt like he just sort of was like, I'm Danhausen, I'm going to get a pin. I was like, no, okay, well, not really going to do much else. There's that one moment of the curse thing, but not much else that I can remember. Or maybe it just happened so goddamn long ago that I don't remember the other stuff by default, just because it's technically at this point it was yesterday. That led into the first thing of the night, which it started around 10 after 8 or so. Heading into this, there was a whole bunch of reports going around that MJF decided to leave and that he had just flown out of Las Vegas. He wasn't going to be on the pay-per-view. He no-showed a signing, and that was up in the air. And when they started advertising that the match was still going on, I was like, oh, okay, I guess maybe those were bullshit, or maybe the cooler heads prevailed or something. What were you thinking about with the MJF situation?
Well, first of all, just to add a bit of clarity, not that they'll be listening anyway, but just to just make sure the both reports put out correctly. No one ever said that MJF flew out of the city. They said that a plane ticket had been booked in his name, but everyone quickly got on a few hours later and said that everyone's saying that he's still in Las Vegas, but there was still a lot of up in the air about whether he'd show up at the arena. He did no-show that meet and greet. I just think that what's happening is I don't discount anything that's happening. I don't know why it's happening is the real kicker, because clearly there is some serious strain and tension between MJF and Tony Khan and the upper management of AEW. And it just doesn't feel like that's in any position to resolve itself. And maybe we're at the point now with all this stuff that's come out in the last couple of days that we're beyond the point of no return with that.
It might be the case. I might still just be kind of overblown for all we know, because he did show up here, and as we'll talk about that in a minute, first off, thanks to Marquise for the super chat. He says CM Punk is the champ. All right, time for bed. Yeah, it is pretty late for a lot of people, including Callum right now. I mean, what time is it over there again? What's the time difference?
6 in the morning now.
6 in the morning, goddamn. I see Frankie's in the chat now too, and Rob, because Rob's doing his media coverage stuff. MJF does start off the night though, and when he gets in the ring, he pretends he's an airplane. And I was like, this is great. That's fantastic. And he gets completely squashed. And I know some people would be like, oh my God, that's a sign that he's going to be leaving. Not necessarily. I mean, the whole story here was once Wardlow is going to get his hands on MJF, he's going to beat the living shit out of him. And he did. I think that even if there wasn't any kind of a potential contract dispute, this is probably still how it would have gone down.
Yeah, I think that this was the right approach to take. MJF just trying to stay out of Wardlow's clutches, get a few cheap shots on him, but Wardlow eventually does get his hand on him, hits the powerbomb symphony. Especially considering how many matches were going to be on this show, it was important that a couple of the matches, or at least one at the very least, would be over in very quick fashion. I imagined that this would be the most likely one. Yeah, maybe. I mean, for all we know, again, there's a lot of stuff that don't want to speculate too much, but for all we know, maybe the way that this match was laid out was part of the reason that MJF got annoyed and decided to leave as well, because I don't think he's the type of guy that says that, oh, I'm not winning, then I'm out, because he's lost quite a lot of pay-per-view and he knows that he can pretty much completely turn his character around with one promo. So I don't think that's probably the issue, but maybe it's just the nature of the fact that, okay, this match is only going to go on for like three or 4 minutes and then it's done. And maybe he wanted a bit more of a grander, long match to justify the build, but realistically the build was leading up to this result. So yeah, honestly, the match itself was what you hoped it to be, and you have Wardlow's now All Elite, and they had that graphic up, but it's kind of all been overshadowed by MJF's future with the company.
Yeah, I'm not feeling like this is one of those death knell type things where, okay, this is the end, he's leaving because this is some kind of big send off and it's a big fuck you to him or something like that. But you never really know. I mean, I didn't think that we'd be having discussions about contract disputes with MJF anywhere close to now. I figured the whole 2024 thing was when things were going to pick up a little bit. So for all we know, maybe he does take a little bit of time off or something, because they did that stretcher angle at the end of this where he's put on the stretcher and sent out there. So maybe that could be a little bit of an indication that while they're negotiating that he's going to take some time off or something. And it was just like, look, we got to go through the pay-per-view at least,
Yeah, I mean, there's different ways you could interpret that. It could be, he's taking a bit of a break for a couple of months. That gives Wardlow a chance to just be on his own, and when MJF comes back, he can enter into another feud instead. Or other people could speculate that the stretcher angle is because they're just going to release him from his contract, or they're going to suspend him indefinitely.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there are multiple different ways they can go, and I guess one of the most interesting things that we'll follow, maybe not talk about here because we'll be concentrating on this and want to get over in a fairly tight schedule because of how long it's been going. But listen back to, because clearly people will be asking at the media scrum Tony Khan about what's the deal with MJF, what happened with MJF. So his answers will be quite indicative of that.
Yeah, and I'm not fortunately able to listen to that at the same time. So if anybody catches anything, if you're listening to this while you're listening to us, drop a note about that in the comments. Frankie saying Wardlow needs to be champion tomorrow. Some other report came out that he feels like he's done way too good for a little bit amount of money over his time. And that's another thing too. I mean, we will talk about that on maybe another like hot tags or something like that. But especially because we have like 19 more matches left to talk about here since this was a long event. And this one is something to really talk about. The Hardys against the Young Bucks. This was a mess. And I don't know what the hell was going on, but I mean, the notes that I wrote down at one point, I was a little slow at first. I'm hoping that means they're just building momentum as time goes on and not that they're lacking the energy tonight. And then the next note is, what is going on with Jeff? He's stumbling on the ropes. Oh, his boot is messed up. Or wait, why is he not even getting up after tagging out Matt? Curious. Oh, this isn't going well. Like, I was just kind of like, okay, this is taking another step and another step. This was rough.
Yeah, there were issues, definitely. I think the match got better as it went along, and they were able to pick things up towards the end. But at this point in the Hardys' careers, the Bucks had to try and carry the workload for this match, and I think they did as good a job as possible. And like Cutler was having some fun outside the ring as well, and doing some stuff to make things a little bit more interesting. But the Hardys just. When you wrestle the kind of style they have, and we've been fortunate in the fact that they've been able to wrestle the style they have for so long, but we're kind of all waiting for the moment. It's like, okay, once like something happens or it just like clicks, then it's just going to go. Like, just needs one thing to start to fall apart with them, and then it just all starts falling off a cliff. And they're clearly at the very, very back end of their careers. So they get a feel-good win here. They might get an opportunity at tag titles. I don't really want them to win the tag team championships because they're just not. They can't deliver quality matches anymore. At least not on a standard 2-on-2 match. I'd say this match was fine, but it was fine because you have the best tag team, one of the best tag teams in the world, carrying the other team around. So, but yeah, definitely not the dream match that many people would have been hoping for, but again, I wouldn't say it was a bad match by any stretch of imagination.
I would. I didn't like this match. I thought that it was uncomfortable to watch, particularly the Jeff stuff, because I was just like, I don't know, is he having another problem going on? Is that what we're seeing here? Or is he injured? Or Like, did he get knocked a little loopy? What's going on? Because everything was slow. And to be fair, there were other matches on this card later on that we would see that I was just kind of like, everybody's going in slow motion here. I don't know what the hell's going on. But this one in particular was the one that stood out to me as just like, for a good while, he was, I guess, trying to sell. It just came off a little bit more to me as him not being able to perform, I guess I could say. So I'm really curious to find out what happened there. If it was just like miscommunication issues or some kind of lethargic approach to things or an injury or I don't know. But the whole running into the crowd thing Frankie mentions in there, I don't know what that was necessarily supposed to be referencing. I mean, I know there's potential that it was referencing the whole him walking out of WWE, but I was like, why? You won the match and you're supposed to be upset now or something? Like, I don't know.
Does that reference anything? I thought he just wanted to celebrate with the crowd.
Maybe.
That's I read into it.
Everything about this just felt a little bit off to me. So I was disappointed with this. And between the start of it being, all right, it's a half hour of a pre-show, then it's the Danhausen thing, then it's a squash match, and then it's this match, I was starting to feel it already, where I'm just kind of like, all right, I want something to pick up the pace. I want something to kind of wow me. And I think, man, if you would have gone with one of the other matches that happened later on tonight, then that would have completely changed things. But instead, they go with the TBS Championship match. And we've said it before a million times. Cargill is a star, and she is a star in the making. And she's got a lot of upsides to her, but she's still not at that level where she can carry somebody or somebody else can carry her to like some 5-star match or something. And I didn't really love this match. I didn't like how I'll probably write up another article. I got 2 articles I have to write later on tonight, so I'll probably dive deeper into this. But I don't like the idea of Cargill being somebody who needs like 4 or 5 people to interfere for her to win the match. So that was a little bit bothersome to me. But the big cool part of this was, hey, Stokely Hathaway's here now. And everybody talking about Malcolm Bivens would be great to go to AEW and be paired with Jade Cargill. Looks like we're getting it. So that's cool. Cargill retains. That's cool. And we got a little thing post-match with Chris Statlander coming out, and then Athena, a.k.a. Ember Moon, the fallen goddess, as she's calling herself, is a little bit of a moniker. We got Moon, Jay, and Statlander stepping up to the baddies. And I was like, you know what? The end of this was way better than what preceded it, in my mind.
Yeah, the match itself was kind of just there. It wasn't, again, not
awful
stellar match.
Yeah,
it was a fine, serviceable match with a completely predictable outcome. Yeah, Jade doesn't necessarily need to have all these people coming in to interfere on her, but they do have to establish the stable. It's still like only like a month or so since they formed together officially, so they're still trying to make sure that they're involved in it. It's clear that they're moving away from Mark Sterling with Jade, and they're going to move to Stokely Hathaway instead, which isn't... I don't say it's an upgrade, because I think Mark Sterling's been great in his role, but it's clear that Jade doesn't respect Sterling, and Sterling trying to use his crutch in this match almost cost Jade the match. So his mistake, Stokely's there to pick things up. Sterling can move towards Tony Nese to maybe build up another stable and build up some other people around as well. Maybe get attached again to MJF if MJF comes back. But the more interesting thing is like the result, and then it's a 3-on-3 situation now with Anna Jay, Chris Statlander, and Athena on one side. I think a lot of people will initially think that this is building up towards Athena versus Jade, and that would be for the TBS Championship. I think that it's Statlander's title. I think based on the reaction when she first came out and stepped to Jade, they've got a more effective size match. I think the reaction that's when Statlander lost the match to Ruby Soho,
that's true.
I think that everyone is really behind Statlander at this point, and I think it would be a mistake to just go with the new person coming in. Not to say that Athena would be a bad option by any stretch of imagination, but I think that they've got something with Statlander now that they should capitalize on to make one of their more homegrown stars a champion.
Yeah, I agree. Statlander, she mentioned that's when she was cutting that promo ahead of the Soho match. Like, she's been here for as long as she has been, and what does she have to show for it? So she's been here to build up that kind of fan base. And even though we know, Ember Moon's been a part of NXT and WWE for so long, I would much rather it be Statlander that wins that championship than to just go with the shiny new toy kind of thing. I don't mean that to like belittle Athena. Like you said, Athena would be an option that makes sense. But given the two, I'd rather Athena get the next title match and for people to be like, okay, cool, like maybe there's a chance, and then to build a little bit more of the Statlander side of things so that she gets the momentum to actually capitalize on that. The fans are supporting her, like you mentioned. So we know that that's something that at least people wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, come on, she doesn't deserve the title. Yeah, people liked her. People were rooting for her over Soho in that match. So something to keep in mind. But that was interesting, having those people coming out there. One of the more interesting parts of the night. And we had somebody come out during the entrance for Death Triangle. And the funny little thing that I had seen, I was like, wait, so who is this? And of course, the first thing I see on Twitter is people going, oh, it's cool that Rey Mysterio's out there. And I'm like, oh, come on.
That's very fun.
Whose kid was that? I'm assuming it's obviously
Phoenix's kid.
Phoenix's? Okay. I didn't know if it would be Phoenix's or Penta's kid because they both were like, hey, kid,
I liked someone else put it on Twitter. It says, I think that's Phoenix's kid, but he dresses like his uncle because he knows his uncle's cooler.
Let's see what else I have for this Excalibur throwing out the what a Donnybrook we have here. I thought that was kind of funny. People don't say Donnybrook all that much anymore. Super Kick City again, and another one of those you get a tope kind of things. Cool Canadian Destroyer at one point. This is a fun enough match. Again, it was a match that as I said before leading into this, I was like, I kind of feel like it might not necessarily need to be on this card, and it might be one of the ones that I would feel afterward I could have gone without and maybe do that on the main event of Dynamite or Rampage or something, and I still kind of feel that way. It was fine, good in some parts and everything, but it ultimately just leads to Julia Hart spits some mist in Pac's face and House Black wins, and I'm like, all right, well, we're still in the same spot that we've been in, so kind of disappointed in that. I don't really think that Julia Hart works too well in this stable as it is, so kind of a meh wash in my mind. I'm assuming that you're far more of a fan of it, actually.
Oh yeah, this match was fantastic. It's like just these 6 guys work really well together. They put in some really good trios matches. Again, it would mean more if they had as trios something to fight for, as a championship that probably should have been introduced years ago at this point, it feels like. But yeah, I think the match was really, really good. Got some good spots thrown together. Like, I felt a little bit worried for Brody King going over the top and hitting himself on the apron when he was going over for the tope, but he bounced back pretty quickly. I like the fact they build him up as like such a unbeatable powerhouse, and like it takes so many people to try and take him down. I like the little tease with the fact that they had both Buddy and Brody out on the outside, and Malakai had to take on all 3 on his own, and he managed to take down 2 of them, and eventually Julia Hart comes in when the lights go down, deals Pac. I think that Julia could work in this, in the fact that I don't think she was working as a bland babyface cheerleader. This could actually, be a bit more of a character that she can sink her teeth into, and maybe that will help as well. I also think it will help with the fact that she won't be in the ring as much because she's not that good as of yet, and so she gets to be a bit more to work with some people that do some really good character work and see if that rubs off on her. And I think that this should start to, whether it does lead into Trios Championships being introduced soon, or this leads into a Malakai Black. I could easily see, we'll talk about the title match when we get to it, but I could easily see Malakai Black being one of the next challengers for the World Championship.
He's got to at some point. And why not ride that momentum wave right now? Yeah.
Yeah, he's looking really good at the moment. I mean, you could say the same thing for a lot of Death Triangle, particularly Pac as well. So, but we'll see how it goes. The the slightly screwy finish means that we might not quite have seen the end of this yet, but I'd be happy for it to move on and see where it takes the House of Black next. Now they've got a fourth member.
Yeah, the only other note that I've got is I don't want to see Julia Hart being another Harley Quinn. Like that tendency for people to do that. I don't want the Alexa Bliss type of thing to carry over to Hart. I want her to do her own thing. So if that ends up being the case, I'm going to be more down on it. If she finds a new spin on it, then that'd be cool. Hopefully. But
I will say this as well, that the people that did the face paint job on Black, Buddy and Brody that was some very top notch face paint.
I actually didn't pay too much attention to it. I'm gonna have to go back and check that out. Better than Hardy's?
Yeah, I think Hardy does his own one anyway, so.
Yeah. They made the 2 Owen Hart Foundation tournament finals. We had Adam Cole beating Samoa Joe and Dr. Britt Baker beating Ruby Soho. Cole and Samoa Joe, rock solid match as expected. I enjoyed that one better than the Soho and Baker one.
Oh, I thought that match sucked.
The Cole and Joe one?
Yeah.
Huh. What about it did you like?
It was slow. It was ponderous. I think Joe was clearly taking too much of the match. I don't think Cole got super involved in it at all. I thought I'd say, again, I can't remember all the top of my head, but I think it's Cole's worst match since he joined AEW.
I'm far from being able to remember that.
And I think Baker and Soho was the far better match out of the two of them.
See, I found myself just kind of like slipping my attention from this one. When the only things I remember from the Soho match was she could not put that sharpshooter on.
No, that was to be fair, she wasn't the only person that was struggling to put sharpshooters on the night, as we'll get to in other matches as well. But I thought that they had a bit more rhythm to them. I think the presentation of both of them was better as well. You had Britt Baker coming out with the Fozzy guitarist playing part of her theme, and Ruby Soho got the full Ruby Soho song with the band behind her. And I think the crowd was more into this match than the previous one, which I was a bit surprised about, just because I think that Cole had the interference of Bobby Fish, and so that kind of made the match a little bit. I think the finish came out of nowhere in that match as well, because he just hit the boom, and then it seemed to take him an age to get Samoa Joe over onto his back. And then when the pin happened, I just thought, oh, that's it. It's like,
I was surprised at the finish too. I figured that the Jay Lethal, Saddam Singh would interfere or something, not just Bobby Fish.
Yeah, but I think once Adam Cole came out in the pink and black trunks, same with Britt Baker as well in the pink and black. And as soon as Adam Cole won and they didn't present him with the title, I just went, oh yeah, Britt Baker's winning.
I thought the same thing. They had that little installation there with the 2 belts and the cup in the middle, and I'm like, all right, well, it's going to be way too weird to have Cole standing next to Soho and people to be happy about that. It's got to be Baker.
Yeah. So I can understand people will be a bit annoyed about the second result in particular, because it's another loss, a big loss for Soho. She continues to be stuck in second year in AEW and not being pushed towards anything major. It's another thing that Britt Baker's won, and there is the worry that she'll get Charlotte Flair fatigue if she does keep winning all the time. But I think the reaction on Twitter does not parallel with the reaction of the crowd that goes to these shows, because they're still seemingly very into Britt Baker.
You could tell that they were leaning more towards Baker. And I mean, the crowd reaction shot that they showed immediately after she won was somebody being in tears, happy that Baker won, you know?
I never know how to think about Soho, because I know that she's good, and I think that she is popular, even though the reaction against Statlander in this match would say maybe something to the contrary. And I think she is good, but I don't think she's great in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know, should she be pushed more? Is she pushed to the level that she is at? I kind of feel not a case like she should still be in WWE. I think she's better off in AEW as most people would be, but maybe she needs a tag team partner and they introduce women's tag titles instead. That kind of feels more her level than chasing down singles gold in AEW.
I feel like in a different era, she stands out in the ring. Like, I mean, if you put her in that, like, I don't know, 2007 range where it's mostly like the divas kind of thing, yeah, she'd be like, oh my gosh, she's the best in-ring worker kind of deal. But I think she's outclassed by not everybody. that sounds awful. Yeah. She's outclassed by a lot of people in both WWE and AEW as far as being like, if I'm going to depend on a great women's match, I'm going to go for more of like a Becky Lynch, a Bianca Belair, or Sasha Banks, those types. Or I'll go for even more so some of the other people in AEW, like a Thunder Rosa or somebody. But she's popular, but then again, I don't ever get the feeling that she is, it sounds like an awful term, like mainstream popular. I feel like she's kind of like the reason people go so crazy about her is because she is the underdog.
Yeah.
And once you give the belt to somebody like that, they instantly start hating them. And not that should be like, okay, well then never give her the title because that would be a bad thing or something. But I feel like there's always bigger fish to fry. And she never does anything that stands out to me as being like, now's the thing that clicked. And she is the top person. In the way that, like, obviously, Daniel Bryan is going crazy and it's going to be that whole yes movement, or, there's a big groundswell of support for Bayley to win the NXT championship or anything. I've never gotten that from Ruby.
I mean, that's the story that they could keep telling with her, like, because the more that she loses these big matches, the more, if there is that groundswell of support, the more likely it's going to build up. Like, just keep her winning other matches on Dark Elevation, Rampage, Dynamite, wherever. Just win some matches against lower tier ones, but she keeps kind of short in the big matches. Eventually, once she does win that first big match, that could be like the game changer for her.
And I could see her being a much better option for the TBS championship. And then you give her something like that. And I thought she could have won here. I thought it would have been something that would have made a lot of sense. But like you mentioned, I mean, once they had that whole table set up and everything, that just wasn't going to happen. I was surprised that Baker offered her a hand, pulled her up. Curious why they went with that. Kind of a little bit of a babyface moment there.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be right for Cole and Baker to turn babyface. And, well, realistically, the other couples, if you want to call it that, on AEW, are Sammy Guevara and Ty Conchi, who are heels. Or at least they should be heels.
Yeah, they're heels. For
sure. Kip Sabian and Penelope Ford, who last time we saw them were heels.
And it's been forever since they've been around.
The Bunny and the Blade, and they're heels.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were to do anything going in that kind of direction, it would kind of make sense that they were the babyface team out of all of them, because they're definitely popular enough for it. But you've still got the Cole thing with the Bucks and the Elite, and so that doesn't seem like it's the right time to do it. So maybe it was just like it was her babyfacing herself for that presentation alone, and then just going to move on from it afterwards. Or maybe she's just going to turn babyface and Cole won't be. Like, because I could see that could be a way of helping build up Jamie Hayter by having Baker as the babyface against Hayter as a heel.
I kind of feel like she did the hand thing less about her and more about, well, it's a shame that Soho didn't win, but here you go. We're going to kind of make it like you didn't just get pinned and then roll out of the ring and walk away kind of thing. But then again, who knows what they do on Dynamite. What did you think about the Martha Hart speech afterward?
I don't think that she's like a fantastic public speaker based on just this speech, but it was heartfelt. I think she was just trying to revel in the moment, and you get the impression this was a big deal for her, and so I'm happy for her to have her moment, even though the speech was a little long.
Yeah, it felt long for me, and it kind of drained a little bit of my energy, to be perfectly honest. I know people are going to be like, oh, but that was her moment. What the fuck you shouldn't have on it for? And it's like, look, I'm not saying she shouldn't have had the moment, but after so many different things that happened throughout this night that made me feel like, okay, maybe this is going on too long. Again, it was another thing that made me just be like, okay, this is kind of, it's feeling like we're doing a 10-minute talking thing to present two titles that we're probably never going to see again. You know, that kind of thing. A lot of people going nuts, loving the look of the championships. I don't like them, but hey, they're not my titles. So, where did we go after that? Mixed trios match. Sorry for the weird speech, everybody. I got a weird Invisalign tray in this week, and it's really making it hard for me to talk. American Top Team against Sammy Guevara, Ty Conchi, or Maleficent, maybe, the way that she came out, and Frankie Kazarian. I had written on here, let's get that energy up, everyone, and this wasn't doing it for me.
No, to be fair, it was better than I expected it to be, just because I feel like, and that's unfortunately mainly due to the work of the guys. Paige is, again, just like shit on the women, but Paige is green.
She's not ready.
Green.
Yeah,
and so totally not ready for a live match. She was very deliberate. She was slow. She was trying to make sure that she was doing everything effectively, and that just made it all look contrived.
Mm-hmm. The note that I wrote down was that she doesn't have the best rhythm.
No.
Like, you could tell that she was like, okay, well, we're going to, are we going to? Yeah, we're going to. Like, that kind of thing. JR, apparently, I don't remember what the move was, but I wrote down that he had said, what the hell was that? After one of the things that Kunshi and Van Zant did. Like, those parts were really killing this match.
And fundamentally, like, I wasn't going to look forward to it because it's continuing this TNT Championship thing, but fortunately, it's now like drawn a hard line under this entire thing because American Top Team got the victory with Sky pinning Kazarian. It means that neither Kazarian or Sammy Guevara can ever challenge for the TNT title as long as Sky is champion. So that means they can go off, because they were at loggerheads with each other throughout the match. You had a Sammy Guevara super kick tie at one point, which was probably the best spot of the match, because that's the thing that got the crowd super interested at that point.
They popped for that more than anything else. Yeah.
So that'll probably lead off into a Kazarian Sammy Guevara mini feud while they start thinking about what they're going to do in their future as a heel unit. And American Top Team can just carry on. They can continue to be heels and go into their own direction. They had a segment later on in the night, which means that Dante Martin is going to be the next challenger for Scorpio Sky's TNT Championship. So that will likely just be an easy win for Sky, and we move on from that. But yeah, the best thing that came out of this match is that we're no longer going to see any sort of pairings like this for the foreseeable future. Yeah,
I am more than happy to see the TNT Championship move on to something else, and that's not a slight on Sammy Guevara, because Sammy Guevara is great, but once they do however many matches that they've done and they trade the titles and it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks, it's the same thing as what happens in WWE. I'm like, all right, well, do we need to have another Bobby Lashley and a Moss match? Do we need to have another Scorpio Sky and Sammy Guevara match? Once in a while, that can happen, but very rarely do I want to see something drag on for months at a time and not get bored. So glad that American Top Team won this. And again, I was like, all right, man, Darby Allin versus Kyle O'Reilly. I'm here for it. And again, I kind of I felt underwhelmed, to be honest.
This match was excellent.
I couldn't get into it, to be honest. I was just kind of like, okay. Like, the most exciting thing about it was when Darby Allin botched that suicide dive and then just did it again or whatever. That was like, I wonder what they're going for here. Okay, that's what they're going for. I just kind of, and the ending for it, I just sort of was like, that's the ending? Okay. Like, it wasn't bad, but I kind of feel like I would have enjoyed it better on another night. Like, that energy, they were working up against it, to me, as a fan.
I mean, yeah, they were definitely, like, going in on pretty much cold build was definitely going to be an uphill battle, and I don't think the crowd got super into it in general. But I think bell to bell, this was the best match on the show so far. I thought that even though it was under 10 minutes, they packed a lot into it. Cole was doing a lot of submission work, was great. Darby was throwing himself all over the place. Had that nice little coffin drop on the apron with Kyle O'Reilly hanging around. Had the suicide dive caught into a guillotine choke on the outside. And I like the finish with like the multiple penalty kicks and Darby Allin just refusing to stay down for the 3. So he hits one final penalty kick, goes up for the King Kong knee drop essentially, and gets the pin. I think that this has helped establish Kyle well. Gives him a big win over a guy who is very well established in the company, and I thought it was a very, very good match.
Where do you think that this goes in the near future? Because obviously it's not over with the staying in Darby Allin against them kind of thing, but you think this leads to anything in particular?
It's hard to say because we know that the next match that's on Dynamite involving one of these two is that they're doing the Super Elite versus Jurassic Express, Christian Cage, and the Hardy Boys on Dynamite. So at this point in time, they're leaving Sting and Darby Allin out of it. I could see it going to a tag match between Red Dragon and Sting and Darby Allin, or eventually building into a feud between Darby Allin and Adam Cole. But I think that it's not necessarily one and done, but with Forbidden Door coming up, I think that they'll probably have something in mind for Darby to do at Forbidden Door. So this might get put on the back burner for a little while that until after that pay-per-view is over.
We still don't know what the situation with Sting is either. No. So they might have to wait a little bit for that too. What do you think about Thunder Rosa against Serena Deeb?
A technically very, very, very good match, but you could tell the crowd was getting tired again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of these issues. The fact that I understand that they want to put on as big a show as possible because they only do 4 or 5 of these pay-per-views a year, so they want to put as much into it as possible to make every match feel big. But it does just fatigue the crowd quite a bit. And I think the crowd were respectful of this, and they got into it towards the end. But unfortunately didn't live up to the fact that these two were putting on, for the most part, a really good, clinical, technically excellent match.
This, more than any other match, was the one that made me go, okay, I think I would have enjoyed this better if it would have been on another night. Because I was digging what I was watching, but I was still struggling to pay attention to it just because I was so freaking tired at this point, and just kind of being like, I could go with this being a 2-night event if they're going to make it a 5.5 hour long show. You cut out some of those other matches, and let's say like you take out the Hardys and the Young Bucks, you take out the buy-in, you move the TBS title match to the buy-in, you take out House of Black, and you have these other matches or something. And I think that by nature of moving this up an hour and a half or something, I think it might have been much better received. And it's a shame because both of these are really talented, and Deeb and Rosa are two people that deserve to be in a spot that they could get that proper support from the crowd, and it didn't work out tonight, I think, the way that it should have. But that's not to say like, no, they put on a bad match, they're bad wrestlers or anything. That's clearly not the case. We know who they are.
No, it was a match which totally superseded the build leading up to it. They both wrestled very well. Deeb was very clinical in all of her offense. Thunder looked really good as well. Was more of like a gutsy baby face. They mixed in a mixture of more submission style grappling and lucha style, and just some hard hitting strong style elements in it as well. Yeah, so I thought it was very good. And on another night with a slightly hotter crowd, I think it would have gotten over really, really big. But it's still a match that I wouldn't be upset to see it happen again.
I'm trying to find where I had seen the criticism for it. I don't remember if it was on Mega Maniacs. If it was, then sorry to whoever had said it that I can't remember who, or if it was on Twitter, but somebody had said Serena Deeb doesn't look like she can hold on to submissions long enough. What do you think about that?
I think there were a couple of issues there. I don't know whether it's a case because I've seen Serena Deeb hold submission on other people. I think that there is a kind of aspect of Thunder Rosa which is part of her character and makes her great, but also can kind of hinder the performance aspect of wrestling. Is that she takes herself very seriously, and she wants the things that she's doing in the ring to look really real. And so obviously that means she's going to struggle out submissions. She's going to try and put her weight down on submission holds. But that obviously can hurt the performance aspect of the wrestling because you need to, lighten yourself up so that someone can put a submission hold on you. And if you're fighting against it because you know that your natural instincts in this situation would be to fight against it, then that's going to make Serena struggle to keep hold of things. So that was my initial assumption, just because I have seen Serena Deeb put on a lot of submission holds to other people and people even that are bigger than Thunder Rosa as well, and apply it perfectly. So I don't know whether it's that, whether it was just a case that she was struggling on the night itself to just keep the weight, the weight on those holds and to be able to lift them up properly. But I don't think it's an unfounded criticism of this match in particular.
This was another one that there were a couple moments in there where I felt like things were going in slow motion. In particular, there was a spot where Thunder Rosa was doing a baseball slide that Deeb was like, I guess, supposed to move out of the way of, and then either wasn't in the right spot or however it was that it ended up going. It was like Rosa just sort of stopped and then was like, oh, okay, I guess we're doing something else or whatever. And those moments always take me out of it. But again, I was like, okay, next match comes around, Thunder Rosa retains and I'm cool with that. But I'm like, all right, we're heading towards this pay-per-view's well past an hour where I feel like it should have been, if not an hour and a half, 2 hours or so. We got 3 more matches left and we got to get something that's going to pump up my energy. Thankfully, the next thing that we get is, ladies and gentlemen, shit's about to hit the fan. I thought that was funny. And throughout our entrances, we get the Jericho Appreciation Society coming out. We get Wild Thing starts playing. And for an elongated entrance of, you wait about almost, it seems like a minute between each person of, hey, it's Ortiz. And then like 45 seconds later. And Bryan Danielson. And whatever, we go through that thing, and for the next like 3 or 4 minutes or something, Wild Thing is playing while everybody's fighting. What the hell is going on with that?
It was fantastic. It was such a good touch because I thought that they decided to just keep playing it for a little while and just let it run out like naturally once the match had kicked off for a little while, just to make it seem like it's a bit more anarchic, as the Anarchy in the arena would suggest. But then the moment that I started laughing was when they started to play it again. Like it finished its actual first thing and they just like restarted again. I thought, oh, this is so much fun. And the best thing about it is that it leads to Jericho shutting the music down. Yeah. And then it all makes sense at that point. It's like, okay, this is interesting. I'm not against it, but it's a weird way to have as a background to the match. And then as soon as Jericho takes off, it says, that's absolutely genius.
Now, like, if I wanted to be nitpicky, I could be like, why the fuck was it happening to begin with? But it's like, oh, it was happening so Jericho could do that. Shut the fuck up, it's wrestling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
not just the production guy was into it. The production guy just thought, oh, this sounds really good, and the crowd are into it, so let's keep going.
I thought that was great, at least with the Jericho thing. If it wouldn't have happened with the Jericho thing, I think it would have been one of those, like, why the hell did they do this? This is so stupid kind of deals, but it was worth it for that. And even though there isn't a single spot in this match that I can go back and be like, okay, I added that to my list of like the best spots of the year kind of deals, or nothing really stood out to me as like, oh, I remember the one time that the one person hit something with whatever, anything like that. Everybody ended up bloody as all hell, and this ended up being a shit ton of fun.
Yeah, this was just such a great brawl, just from start to finish. There was, again, it's really too much stuff to happen to count, but you had like the dives off the ladder from Santana Ortiz through both members of 2.0 on the tables. You had Moxley being pushed off the apron into a barbed wire table, which didn't break. Again, a really funny spot where Jericho tries to apply the walls of Jericho on a table with Moxley, and then the table collapses while they're on it. I just thought, oh my god, he's doing the classic sports entertainment thing where submissions hurt more when they're on tables, and then just collapsed. I just thought that was funny, but it didn't take away from the match. But the best part of it was you had Kingston and Garcia and also Matt Menard fighting for ages round about the concession stand. And Daniel Garcia just disappears for a while. I think he gets trapped in a like an elevator or something, or something on those lines. Like he just disappears for a while, and we don't see him pretty much for the remainder of the second half of the match. And then Kingston comes out looking like an actual zombie. Just like blood dripping around, blood all over his shirt, with this wide-eyed expression. He's carrying a gas canister, or like one of those, and starts pouring it all over Jericho and Danielson, who's got Jericho in a submission. Danielson clearly is fucking pissed because essentially Kingston said, "Okay, eye for an eye, fire for fire," and so he's going to set Jericho on fire, and obviously Danielson's now covered in gasoline as well, so he doesn't want to risk it as well. He tries to take down Kingston. They get fighting. This allows them to take out Moxley. Jericho takes out Kingston with Judas Effect. Danielson fights off him and Hager for as long as he possibly can, but then he eventually gets attacked with the injured leg, which obviously was brought up from Rampage. And then, they put him on this Walls of Jericho and essentially just choking him to death with one of the ring ropes that had been taken out earlier, and he's just forced to pass out eventually, as you'd expect. And I thought this was great. The result is what I'd expect it to be because we got blood and guts to do, baby.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, the Jericho Appreciation Society getting the win here means more because they are the actual faction and the group that is going to be able to carry this feud going forward by being like, we even beat you guys in this big brawl, you a bunch of tough guys, and we ended up beating you, and we're sports entertainers kind of deal. You got the potential of the Kingston and Bryan stuff to going forward, and I ended up I was like, all right, easily the best part of this night so far at that point. Arguably my favorite part of the night, despite the fact that we had some other stuff that was good following that. But that was the thing that I've been waiting for, where I was just like, okay, now I'm awake again. And then we got a little bit of backstage stuff. We got that Dante Martin thing. We also got Andrade, who, congrats to Andrade and Charlotte Flair getting married. But he called the Andrade family off. It's a bunch of losers. And they are. They lose everything. But he's welcoming a new guy to the roster. This is his new partner, and it is Roosh. Mm-hmm.
So Roosh is, for those unaware, he's a former 2-time Ring of Honor world champion. He's been with Ring of Honor for a considerable length of time. Obviously, now Ring of Honor is done. He gets to clearly signed a contract with AEW. It might be an AEW / Ring of Honor thing that other people have signed. But they have a history. I think they were both part of this whole Los Ingobernables, which was their faction over in Mexico. I think it was those two. They had Tetsuya Naito for a little while as well, who's over in New Japan. And so they have a good connection. I think that this is a far better direction for Andrade to have a tag team partner going forward because, of course, there's an abundance of tag teams in AEW, but I think this is something that could help him rise up a little bit more, because he hasn't really been prominently featured as a singles guy.
And it's not like any continuation of the family office stuff is really going to work. We got Jack Evans is gone, and Angelico, I'm pretty sure is gone. I don't know for sure about Angelico.
No, he's still around.
He is? I thought that he might have said something about taking some other bookings or something, but I mean, he probably
is taking other bookings because most of their roster can take independent bookings. So.
And like Andrade does not work well with, for instance, Private Party, the way that you would think that they could work in a faction. And why would he be with the bunny? That stuff doesn't really work. So I'm hoping this is the end of the whole family office bullshit, and then we could just get a little bit more focus on Roosh and that kind of deal. But I like that. I don't know really much about Roosh, but I've heard good things. So that's cool. We got another great match, the triple threat match for the World Tag Team Championship. We got Jurassic Express, Team Taz, Swerve in Our Glory. Awesome match.
Yeah, really, really good threat. A lot of action. I actually quite like the fact that it wasn't just like action all the time. There were moments where it was like took time to breathe and settle down. You had like the hoss fight between all the three bigger guys in the match. But yeah, had plenty of flips, plenty of high flying action, and a result that I don't think many people expected.
There were a lot of near falls towards the end there that got me too. Like that spear from Ricky Starks. I thought that was going to be the end. I thought that that powerbomb combo from Swerve and Keith Lee got me. I was like, okay, that's the end. Oh, no, look at that. Another kick out. I just ended up enjoying this pretty much from start to finish.
Yeah. I think they played it quite intelligently in that they knew that quite a lot of people going in were looking at the Christian aspect and Christian and Jungle Boy and like, what's going to happen? Is Christian going to screw Jungle Boy out of this? And they played super hard on the fact that like Christian was really trying to help his team win, trying to prevent them from being taken out with title belts. Had him getting pushed into the steel steps. That distracted Jungle Boy for the Ricky Stark spear. So that could have been the instance that, oh my God, Jungle Boy just took his eye off the ball and lost. But they decided to essentially extend this out even further and just reinforce the positive relationship between Christian Cage and Jurassic Express. And by having them retain, I'm interested to see what direction it takes in terms of who does eventually win the tag titles. Because it feels like they've had the titles for about 6 months now. So it felt like it was about time that the title switched hands. And I thought Swerve and Our Glory in particular were very, very over with the crowd. And I think the crowd really wanted them to win. But yeah, we'll see what direction it takes. But yeah, as a very, very good match.
Yeah, I'm really curious where the tag team title scene is going to be going. I can't honestly look at anybody. Like I can look at like Thunder Rosa and be like, all right, well, Jade Cargill makes sense to potentially beat her, or TNT Championship could be practically anybody at this point because we've established that it could be like a higher up person. It could be somebody who's on their way up. It's it's kind of a upper mid card, lower mid card, play around with it kind of deal. But the tag team titles, I'm like, every time I think that it's going to end up going to somebody and then it's going to be Santana and Ortiz, they do something else. And then I'm like, okay, never mind. And there's nobody standing out to me right now that seems like the obvious people to beat Jurassic Express. I don't even think there's an obvious set of people who could challenge them. That would be like, all right, clearly the next team that was going to be fighting for them is going to be X, Y, Z, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, they've just established the Rush and Andrade tag team, but again, they won't be ranked. So the next people highest in the rankings, you had both Hobbs and Starks and Lee and Strickland as second and third. Top of the rankings is FTR. And obviously FTR holds 2 other tag titles. It wouldn't be completely out of the question that FTR win the AEW tag titles and basically become like 3 promotion champions.
But I wouldn't think that would be the case.
Yeah. But after that, you've got Danielson and Moxley and then Roppongi Vice, and all of them seem like they're not ready. They're not right for the tag titles as of right now. So I'd be interested to see how that changes because I don't see any absolutely specific one. I thought that like one of the other 2 teams is going to take titles, and then that would be your feud for the titles for a little while between those 2 teams. It seems odd that they're still holding the title.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Frankie in the chat saying it might just go to Red Dragon. Even though I thought that might have happened earlier, maybe they just go back around to it. Maybe that actually is the reason why they're doing this match on Wednesday to kind of like reignite the Red Dragon thing.
It seems so odd though they've already had 2 shots at the tag titles and lost both of them. So that's not really something that AEW does too often, and I wouldn't be super keen on it, even though I love Red Dragon. I'd be more keen on, honestly, not the Hardys winning the tag titles, but the Hardys being the next people to get a shot. And then maybe the Young Bucks taking the titles back.
I guess we'll find out. And we got our main event. AEW World Championship match. Hangman Adam Page against CM Punk. Of course, we get Let's Go Hangman, CM Punk chants. I'm going into the match rooting for Hangman. And despite the fact that we have a new champion in CM Punk, I thought this match was fantastic.
Yep, excellent. The crowd reactions were great to it because you could tell that obviously there were people on both sides of things because they were booing CM Punk and booing Page at different moments. And I think that isn't one of those situations where it's like Triple H and Roman Reigns where you just don't want either guy to win the match and you're just like booing the entire concept of the match in general. But it's a case of, no, boos are usually louder than cheers because you're usually more visceral when you're booing someone. It's just a case of, yeah, these two guys have equally pissed off different parts of the fan base during the build, but they've also endeared themselves to different parts of the fan base as well. There's an excellent story in the match. I think Page, for overall, the story they told was that Page was the better out of the two of them overall. Like Punk was more hanging on, and Page was in control of the vast majority of the match. But then they did the ref bump spots, and Page is conflicted. He gets the title belt. He he looks like he's going to attack CM Punk with it, but thinks against it, tries to win it the proper way by going with the buckshot lariat. Punk reverses that into the GTS, gets the victory with one GTS. We don't see a single lariat hit. And yeah.
Multiple attempts that people can't do.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that we saw both the Punk shot lariat and the go to shit in this match as well. Because that's just like, yeah, that carries over from the build up to the match as well. And yeah, I think that this CM Punk, it was like, it took a while to get going, but I think this CM Punk is arguably the best wrestling CM Punk we've ever seen. Because he's just so much wiser, so much more deliberate, so he's just playing off himself, and he's had so many great matches. And yeah, I thought that Page was going to win as well, because I just felt there was more to be told with his story, but CM Punk with the title, it does feel like a really big deal.
I'm not super big of a fan of it. I kind of want to. I'm not, obviously I could be proven wrong and whatever, but I don't want people to be like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever and whatever, and then eventually just be disappointed. I'd rather be proven wrong and think that this is maybe not the right course of action, and then to be like, actually this ended up being a good title reign. But I'm less opposed to the title switch. Or like some people would say, like, well, you think that Hangman needed to win this? I don't think he needed to. I think it would have been better if he would have won it for his own credibility. And this doesn't kill him. It's CM Punk. It's not like he, lost the title in 10 seconds to fucking Marco Stunt or whatever. But like, I kind of am just like, I don't think the level of quality that we're going to get for the world title matches going forward with CM Punk is going to be as good as what we've been getting from other people. And I'm hoping that it's a short title reign. Like maybe he loses it by All Out even.
I think that Punk standards will be maybe not at the same level as Page, like week to week, belt to belt, but Punk really can build feuds. And I think adding his credibility title could be useful in terms of just building up more heated rivalries, build up more things that are more character driven as opposed to in-ring driven. So I think there are benefits to it, and they're still clearing the lines of Punk still babyface, Page is still babyface. There's been no kind of seeds being sown of Punk turning heel, so they're still going in that direction. But maybe they tell a story of Punk, like now he has the title, now he is top of the world, now it's no longer about like happy to be here, and he has to start thinking of ways to keep hold of that title that might lead him more towards a more dastardly try and win at all costs manner. Or maybe he does lose it very quickly, and maybe that sends him off into a violent spiral of like, oh my God, I've lost the title I'm the shortest reigning AEW world champion in history. That's unacceptable, and then he gets angry about it. But I think one way or another this will eventually lead to a CM Punk heel turn.
I hope so.
But again, I'm not against it in terms of it, because as I say, I think CM Punk's having a really solid run of great matches, in particular, like in the last couple of months or so, with starting from the MJF match back at Revolution had the match with like Dax Harwood. She's had like some good matches with members of Dark Order, and yeah, this match was great as well. And a big part of that is just the fact that Paige is fantastic, and he rarely misses, if at all. I would be surprised if we saw a rematch of this, but maybe not immediately. But maybe this could be the all-out main event as well.
Who, if you had to guess right now, whether it's babyface or heel, who do you think is maybe the next choice for champion?
Wardlow.
Huh.
Because Wardlow destroyed CM Punk in their one match against each other and lost because he was distracted by MJF. So I think that there's a very good possibility that they build up Wardlow to take like around the story of like Wardlow's the guy that beat CM Punk, or is the guy that should have beaten CM Punk first, not MJF. And they have Wardlow just take the title because he's the really hot hand at the moment. And if you do want to only give Punk a short title reign, I think he's the best short-term option. Long-term, if you're looking like beyond that point, I mean, I wouldn't say no to a Bryan Danielson CM Punk title match on a big show either.
I think that's going to be all out.
It could be. I just don't feel like Danielson's like, not that he's not world title caliber. Of course he's world title caliber, but he's not been positioned as a world title contender.
Yeah,
he's being positioned as a tag team guy.
When is all out again? That's
Labor Day weekend, so it'll be the first weekend of September.
September 5th or so.
Yeah.
I mean, they got time.
Do it by then. Yeah, they've got plenty of time to build it up.
All of June, all of July, all of August to build that. I can see that being the case. You kind of get out of the Jericho Appreciation Society thing, and maybe we get Punk against Jericho. I don't know.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that the likelihood is based on Tony Khan's the way that he's thinking, that All Out will be in Chicago, even though Forbidden Door is also going to be in Chicago, because they want to make that kind of like All Out is in Chicago. That's its home base, in the same way that Double or Nothing will, in most cases, be held in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, then you really want Punk to lose the title in Chicago? I mean, maybe you do, but I think that could be an interesting way to approach it as well. Like, I think it's unrealistic to expect that Punk will lose a title in a couple of weeks or by All Out. I think
Full Gear.
Yeah, we're looking more like Full Gear, I'd say.
Yeah.
And who knows? There are many, like, at that point, Kenny Omega might be healthy again. You could have like Moxley, Danielson. You could have Darby Allin be positioned. It would be quite interesting if it was Darby Allin, because obviously Darby Allin's CM Punk's first match in the company was beating Darby Allin, so it would be kind of full circle to have Darby Allin be the one to beat CM Punk. But there are many, many options, and I think we just look forward to it and see what direction they end up taking. I think there's quite a lot of possibility there.
What do you think that they're going to be doing going forward with Paige now that he's not champion? That's interesting too.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to say, because there are many different ways they could take it, and it makes sense. It could be a downward spiral thing of him like now going back to the bottle and like just him just trying to drink his troubles away. I could see this leading into him developing some sort of reuniting with the Young Bucks.
That's what I'm kind of thinking. Maybe something with the Elite, and maybe they do something playing into the potential for the Forbidden Door stuff. Maybe it's like, hey, Hangman, we need you on our side to be in this, 8-man tag or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I could also see a situation where, like, if that was to happen, then it's them against the Elite side, the Undisputed Elite, or however they want to term themselves. And in an ideal world, you'd have Roderick Strong be released from his contract in WWE and he joins them, and then you've got a 4-on-3, and then Omega comes back and it's 4-on-4 with the original Elite versus the Undisputed Elite, and that could be a big feud. But yeah, again, it's just an interesting direction they decided to go in. I'm pretty sure they wouldn't do this without an idea about where they're going to take Page from here, because it is important that he's continued to be booked reasonably strong and still be prominent, even though he's no longer champion, because he did have a very good reign. And you don't want to have that go to waste by him just falling down the card or falling into obscurity.
I trust them a little bit more in that than WWE, but I also am wary of how they've done that in the past with other people, because like Brian Cage, for instance, he gets brought in, he's a big deal, then a couple months later he's not doing jack shit for a year and a half or so. And it's not something that they've proven that they're foolproof in. So there is a chance that maybe Page doesn't have anything going on for him right now. And I guess that's another thing we just gotta have to wait and see. But I am honestly disappointed that Punk is champion, in the sense that I don't think that things are going to be as good for the world title scene going forward. But I am looking forward to being proven wrong. And it's still interesting that it happened. And I thought that it was a great match. So within the bubble, you know, if I'm going to look at it the way that I looked at some of the other things within the bubble, great main event.
Yep, I think I would say the final 4 or 5 matches, the final 4 or 5 matches really upticked the show, which I think was okay at that point, but a bit middling. And then the final 5 matches really picked up, and this was the icing on the cake. I think it was probably match of the night. It's a tough call between this one and the Anarchy in the arena. Yeah. They're both great matches in completely different ways.
If somebody said that this was their favorite match of the night, I would totally buy it. If somebody said that the tag team title match was their favorite, I'd buy that too. I just can't imagine that somebody would be like, oh man, that like that mixed trios match was my favorite or something. But if you did enjoy that, then that's great. You know, I mean, anytime that somebody hasn't fun with those kind of things, even if they disagree with me, I'm totally fine for that. So by all means, tell us what you guys liked and what you didn't like. Leave a comment below. If you are over there on YouTube, hit that like button as well if you enjoyed this podcast, and toss a little spare change our way with that thanks button, or sign up for the members only content by clicking that join button. It's the same thing you'd find over on Patreon. If you think anybody that you know would be interested in checking this out, you know, pass the channel along their way, hit that little share button as well. It's another great way of doing that. And make sure that you are subscribed to this channel. Just double check that and ring that little notification bell. That way you know when we go live for things like this going forward. And we didn't do a live watch along for this because it would have been 5.5 hours long for that. And WWE events are shorter, so they're easier to do. And, you know, we might do that for In Your House, for instance. We got that coming up next week, and Hell in a Cell. I don't know about Hell in a Cell if we'll do that for the watch along, but you know, there's a way to go around bouncing back and forth between these things. I am leaning a little bit more towards the idea that In Your House could potentially be a watch along, and Hell in a Cell might just be another post show. If you like that idea, you don't like the idea, let me know. I'll take all that into consideration, and we will continue on and talk about whatever other topics we got to talk about throughout this next week when we give our predictions for those 2 events, and then we round things out with the hot tags. Then Saturday and Sunday comes along and we do the pay-per-view coverage. But at least for Double or Nothing, that's all the thoughts I got to say. Any other last thoughts you got, Callum?
I thought just overall it was a good to great show with some like overdone. It was too long, and there were some matches that didn't need to be in that kind of, I think, took the overall quality down below the standards of previous Double or Nothings. But I think the very best of the matches were some of the best matches that we've seen all year so far. So yeah, I still enjoyed myself, even if it wasn't like the perfect experience.
And I can echo a lot of those statements, and maybe our opinions change about this a little bit later on after Dynamite. Maybe they don't. Who knows? At least we got that coming up to look forward to. So, and thank you all for listening to this. Make sure if you want to check out more, you check out smarkoutmoment.com to see whatever else is happening up on the site. You know, some random editorials here and there. You could check out the WWE Fantasy League, WWEFantasyLeague.com to see what's happening over on there that Callum is spearheading. You got the potential of different articles that I got on EWN and on Bleacher Report. Apologies for the problems on the Bleacher Report app. It's not my fault. I didn't do it. But the stuff that I'm going to be putting out, I'm going to be writing up some stuff after we get done this. I got that. I got over on fanboysanonymous.com. Plenty of things that I want to do on there that I just don't have the time to do. And Frankie was mentioning earlier, am I going to do something based off of Stranger Things? I like that idea. I'm hoping that I could do something like a little, mid-season recap kind of deal or something, because they're splitting it up and they're doing half the season one time, half the season another time. Maybe I get a chance to do that, hopefully this week. That'd be cool. And if anything else happens over there, just follow Fanboys Anonymous and you'll see that all popping up on the blue brand. You can follow me at Tony Mango. You can follow Callum over there at Wigmeister14.
Yep, find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. As Tony said, check out the Fantasy League over on smarkatmoment.com. Also check out the Power Rankings, my week-to-week contribution. And check out all the other articles on there as well, because stuff goes out weekly, stuff goes out monthly, stuff goes out all the time on there as well. So keep following along. And also catch up with Rob over on Fightful and all of his stuff that he's got going on as well at Dude Felice.
Alrighty, everybody, that is it for this edition. Another pay-per-view in the books. 2 more coming up. I guess technically 4 more coming up next week with the predictions double dose and the post-show double dose or whatever kind of content we do with that. So plenty of pay-per-view points coming. And then hopefully we'll get into some of those other categories like the Mount Rushmores and, whatever it might be. But until then, we will see you next time, everybody. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.